There is an awful lot of YouTube making that feels like you're just yelling into the void. It's just sitting here in a room by myself, and in all honesty, in the dark, so that the lights hit you just right, you know? Just sitting in the dark, just talking to a camera by yourself. And it is a fascinating experience. I've built between 17 and 30 companies, depending on how you count. And the truth is, YouTube is just so interesting, and building a YouTube company is so unique. I wanted to walk you through the first 4 months and what I'm thinking. Am I yelling into the void? Or is it actually a business that's growing? Do I ever see there being profit? Or is it really a brand play? Let me walk you through what I've learned in the first 4 months having a YouTube channel and spending some major time on it. We've been running this YouTube channel for 3 months, right? We're at 30 videos right now, 47 subscribers. And there is some real lessons to be learned starting a YouTube channel. What's been interesting is our growth trajectory, our growth curve. We hired a consultant, and I'll have to ask them if they're okay with me sharing that we've hired them. But we hired a consultant for 12 grand for the first 3 months to help us get our feet under us. And that has been worth it. It's been worth every penny of $12,000 to have a professional walk us through step by step, critique our stuff, make sure we're doing it right, and they're providing a lot of value. And that may sound like a lot of money, but my goals with the YouTube channel are fairly substantial. Let's talk about how the growth has gone. Our first ever view, we were repurposing content that we had already filmed when we first launched Bedrock. And we shot all of these videos on the screen, like the ones that you see with me in front of a brick wall or me in front of a white backdrop. Those were all shot 6 or 7 years ago. And they were shot with us trying to explain the value proposition of Bedrock before Bedrock started growing on its own. And we realized with Bedrock, hey, we get referrals from financial services houses as much as anything. And so we never really used those ads. And so we had all this content just sitting in a repository, and we said, okay, let's figure out some way to get those up on YouTube to tell the Bedrock story because we did them, they're good production value. And then we just started shooting other types of content. Like we shot some videos in cars. We haven't focused on that very much because candidly, when I'm in my car, it's a convertible. I've got the top down. The audio sucks. I'm not going to change that. And then we started doing on-site videos. We did the enormous rehab video out at Willow Creek. We haven't done a lot of those because the production cost of those is substantially higher. I've got to have a guy follow me around with a camera. The audio is harder to do. The videos, you got to control a lot more pieces of the environment. But what we saw, and these numbers are not indicative of this, we started out with 30 views a video, friends and family. And then over time, those 30 view videos have climbed to 60, 70 views. And then we've had a lot of 12 view videos. Every once in a while, there's just a clunker that no one really watches. That one was sad, but that was my first try at doing something new with a video, a current event. And it had a big, long, horrible, sitting in a convertible with bad audio on it. And so we've 30 views a video. We were there for a little while, except for Enormous Rehab. And Enormous Rehab, just because it was such cool production value, it was such an interesting thing. And my wife shared, hey, we launched this YouTube channel when we were like 5 videos in. And I shared with my friends and family, hey, we launched this YouTube channel. And I think a lot of our friends and family went and saw that video, and that shot up the charts. And that was our highest viewed video for a long time. But I think a lot of that was it was our friends and family, like we're looking at what we're doing. My rental property was shot 67 times. That's just an insane situation. Before we go farther, I want to give you a little bit of an intro to the channel if you're new here. This is an entrepreneurship channel, and maybe a little bit of a guided tour of the type of stuff we do and why you might like it might be helpful. If I was to start anywhere on the channel right now, I would start right here at Trump's Tariffs Explained. One of the 7 companies that I own is a bandage company. It's called Crash Pads. We import directly from China. So the day after Liberation Day, in 2025, we did a video talking specifically about all the intricacies of how Trump's tariffs affect my business, my bandage company. And what I did was I got a whiteboard out and I just walked through all of the different pieces of Trump's tariffs and how they affect a small business, from profitability to pricing a product to building a supply chain to employment to sales taxes to who pays the tariffs. And if I'm honest, I think it's one of the better explanations of how tariffs affect an economy of anything I've seen or heard. And it did really well. And we just walked through all of the intricacies of that. If that doesn't interest you, maybe you'd be more interested in enormous rehab. I've always loved rehabbing houses. This is the biggest rehab I've ever attempted. And I've flipped at least 20 properties over the years. But this rehab cost us $1,060,000. It's going to be years of work. It's a big, gorgeous, interesting, complicated rehab. And we're letting people follow along the entire time as we rehab the whole thing. It's an incredible project. It's got it's big 6,000 foot McMansion, and it's got this beautiful sliding rock feature into rivers. It's a fascinating project. If you're just interested in, hey, real estate investment, how do I get there? This video, Never Buy Rentals Here, is the simplest math that I can do to help people understand what makes a good rental and what doesn't. Where are markets that make sense and where are markets that don't make sense? If that interests you, feel free to look around, but it's an entrepreneurship channel. There's a bunch of different pieces. It's not just real estate. It's not just efficiencies. It's not just Turo. It's not just flipping. It's not just Airbnb. It's all of those things, because I own companies right now that do every single one. My rental property was shot 67 times. That's just an insane situation. I wish the production quality had been better on that and that I had more interesting to say than, holy cow, this is nuts. But that's how I felt. And it was so early in the process. We actually shot that really early in the process. And so with that being the case, we've gotten more comfortable and we've told more stories. And there's been some clunkers, 18 views, 60 views, 120 views. What we've seen recently is this Turo video was not shot for YouTube. It was actually me talking to like investors at the end of year one. I was like, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how we think it's going. We repurposed that video and that got over 100 views. And we're like, okay, that was good. And then the whiteboard video, Trump's Tariffs Explained, that was just me standing in front of a whiteboard explaining kind of some big complicated macroeconomic stuff, and that got a bunch of views and it was really long and good. And then we have seen over the past weekend, we've started cutting what we're calling mediums, these shorter videos out of our long videos, just to see if people will engage if a short video isn't an hour and a half long. And then we have started seeing the videos that we're putting up. For example, over the weekend, we put up Turo's Insurance is Not Insurance. So a big, complicated, weighty explanation around Turo, which was cool. And that got 260 views. That went off the charts for us. And I know 260 views doesn't feel like a lot, but what I would like to communicate is there's a lot of YouTube that feels like you're yelling into the void, right? There's a lot of YouTube that feels like I'm just sitting here in my room, spending my time. I could be spending it doing other things in my other companies. But 3 months in, I think this is worth it. 3 months in, I'm starting to smell the pot simmering, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be something awesome. And what I'm seeing is we've went from 30 views to 70 views to 110 views, and now we're seeing 200 plus views. And these are views on an hour-long conversation. My strategic goals with YouTube aren't to build a YouTube channel and get famous. I would just assume rather not. My strategic goals with YouTube is that every single company that I run does better if I have more people involved, if I have more strategic partners. It does better if I know more people, if I have more money coming in. They all do better with those two things. The bottleneck on every company I've ever started at some level has been capital partners, people who want to get involved. With Bedrock, it's people who want to buy rental real estate. With Turo, it's people who would like to buy rental cars. Every single one of my companies has the same constraints, which is I'm young, right? But I don't have infinite money. I'm the last of 10 kids. I'm rebuilding a third time. And so we said pretty early on when I decided to do this, hey, this would do better if we could just go out and find more people that know us and like us and trust us and want to help them build their futures. And YouTube has been good for that. It's been really good for that. And what I'm seeing is that my reach is increasing. Not by a lot. It's gradual, but my reach is increasing. For example, we recut this real estate's a retirement asset, not gold. It didn't do that well, 27 views, but it was an hour and 12-minute long webinar where you never saw my face. We recut just the parts where you could see my face, and that went to 200 views, right? I spent $16,000 on a car on Turo and it did this much. That's done 36 views in 20 hours. It's not even a day old. And so that's on trajectory to do 150 plus views based on our current use case. And so when you get into the back end of the YouTube channel, and it gets pretty technical, but if you get into the back end of the YouTube channel, we got a bunch of more stuff ready to go, right? But you can get into the back and look at your lifetime. We've only been doing this since February, what looks like 11th, right? It's now May 6th. So just a couple months, 3 or 4 months. We've gotten 1,600 views on this. We got 165 hours of watch time. So 1,600 views on the longs, 165 hours longs. And then if we transition out of that and say, okay, we're getting views, I look at that and I just think 165 hours. Let's say that the entire time commitment I've made to this channel is 1,000 hours. Let's do that out. Let's come out with that. Let's say that this was a full-time job, right? And I'm spending 40 hours a week. 1,000 hours divided by 40 hours a week, 25 weeks. So let's say that my Turo commitment had been freaking 25 weeks, half a year. So 6 months of working time. It's probably low. I've probably got more. I'm probably coming up on a year of my working life on this channel. So let's say that I have spent something like 2,000 hours building it. And what I can say is, okay, I've got 165 hours of people who I've been able to engage with. I've been able to give good information with. I've been able to attract relationships. I've been able to create reach. If I just look over the last 30 days, you'll see that is half. It was 165 or something hours. Just in the last 30 days, we've got 80 of that, which means that it's catching traction, which means I'm not yelling into the void. Something's building, it's just building slowly. And if the people who are watching these are getting value for free because they're entrepreneurs and they're able to listen and understand some of these complicated issues that we're attacking, if the people who are watching these are getting value, then great. If the people who are watching eventually reach out and say, hey, we want to be involved, we want to do some business, great. But the reach is definitely growing. And beyond that, there's the short channel. Like the long channel and the short channel, one of the pieces of advice we got from our consultant was don't put your longs and your shorts on the same channel because they'll speak to the algorithm the wrong way. Your shorts need to support your longs. Your longs don't need to support your shorts. And if you look at our shorts channel, you can see really quickly in there that we're getting 100, 700 views. People loved the whiteboard styles content. We'll have to do more of that, but we're getting hundreds and hundreds of views. If you look at our shorts channel specifically, and you look at those analytics, you'll see we've got 130 watch hours, 17,000 views on those short videos. And in the last 30 days, 26 hours out of 116. So again, it's growing. We're getting a disproportionate amount more recently. And we're not very good at this yet. Like I've built enough companies to know when you're cooking, when you're humming, when you're cooking with gas, when it's working, when you know your systems, your process, your procedures, your product, your personnel, all the things, and you figured them all out and it's humming, cool. Like we are really good at buying properties with Bedrock. We're good at that. We know how to manage them, we know what to expect, we know how to set our expectations, we know how to communicate with our investors. Our investors like us, we have great returns. There's good things that we're doing at Bedrock. That took years to get there. It took years to get there. It just took years to get there. And the fact that this is already this far, and we're starting to see these circles. I pointed this out to my wife earlier. Right? 1 view per hour, 3 views per hour, 2 views per hour. I'm assuming those numbers are going to keep climbing Because as we find people and we find audience and we find viewership, we find subscribers, we keep producing stuff that I think's good. We keep figuring out how to refine our longs into mediums and our mediums into shorts. And we keep trying to figure out like the YouTube channel and how to work with it. It's just going to get easier and easier. So a quick update after 4 months on YouTube. I think it's working. I think it's growing. I think it's worth my time. It's been an interesting creative outlet. I've enjoyed that. We have gotten some value out of it, and I think the future is really bright. So building a YouTube channel, it can feel enormously frustrating. It can feel a lot like you're yelling into the void. It can feel a lot like you're just spending your time. The nice thing about my life is I don't really have a job. I own companies. And so my primary job is to help those companies grow. And I think having better reach and people who can just watch, hey, if you want to get involved with us, feel free to go watch me for 100 hours. You get to know exactly who you're working with. You'll get to know how I feel about life, how I feel about family, how I feel about religion, how I feel about the current political environment, how I think through my problems. And if that's not enough to say, hey, this guy's an honest guy who I like, and let's get involved, let's do some business, then nothing freaking is. But if I can, with just a month's worth of work, if with 4 months worth of work, if I can have 165 hours one-on-one with whoever, if in 4 months worth of work, I can have another 116 hours of one-on-one with whoever, if I can have 400 hours of my time just one-on-one sharing value, I look at the trajectory of that and say, a year from now, is that number going to be 100 times? Are we going to be 13,000 hours of value conveyed, 26,000 hours of value conveyed, and I will have only spent 3,000 hours to produce the content? That number is going to shift, right? That number is going to shift where I have spent 2,000 hours right now, and I've got like 250 hours of value created where, my goals might eventually be met. Eventually, those numbers are going to shift because this is an exponential growth, and this is just me producing content. And I'm getting better at this. I'm spending less time per piece of content that I create to create better content and systemized content and templated content. I'm just creating systems like every other company I've ever built. And so one day that number that is going to shift, right? And we're going to say, hey, now there's 1 million viewed hours for 5,000 hours of Jeremy's time. That's interesting. That's exponentially interesting. And because I don't really rely on the YouTube algorithm as pay, like my benefit is, yeah, people come to us and want to work. Like they understand the Turo benefit when it comes to mileage deductions, and they realize as a high income earner, it's a really good asset. Turo cars are a surprisingly good asset class is you got high income. Hey, if you've got an old property that kind of sucks and you come to Bedrock because you watch our content, you get comfortable with me, you come to our content, let us do a 12 property 1031 exchange. Hey, that's value. And I can just see that we're creating those doors. We're building a sea of doors that are open. And I already have products that we can just offer to more people if we knew more people. I have staff who can deploy capital when we have more capital relationships. And so I can just see that the strategic vision behind the channel is coming along. A little bit of being an entrepreneur is being willing to put it all on the line for a vision that only you see. That's where I am right now. We've got it on the line one more time for a vision that I see, for a value that I see. And right now, it's such little value that it would be easy for anyone to walk away. But I've built enough companies to know that when something is growing, and this is growing. 4 months in, I like what's happening on YouTube. It's creating interesting value. We're going to keep doing it. 30 videos in, it can feel like screaming into the void. If I was just expecting to get rich off of YouTube AdWords or ad revenue, this would be a waste of time. But the fact that I have other companies that this is helping to grow, I think it's genius. All right, if you enjoyed that video, just being with me, as a guy who has started like 17 to 30 companies, depending on how you count, my whole life has been starting companies. YouTube's interesting. The process is interesting. The procedures are interesting. The systems are interesting. If you enjoy a long form discussion of me trying to help you understand how it feels to be an entrepreneur, how to start a company, how to start a YouTube channel, how to build content, how it feels to look at YouTube with the experience of $300 million of financial advice over a decade and having built 30 companies and actively running 7. If you're enjoying that experience, then I think what you would like next is this one right here. Built a Turo fleet fast. We built a Turo fleet, about $250,000 worth of cars, 21 cars, over a year and a half. At the end of a year, we're about 3 years into that now, but at the end of a year, I did a retrospective, kind of like I did for the 4 months of YouTube. But I talked about how I was feeling about the business, how it was going, if I liked it or if I didn't like it. I'm going to put that video right here.